Hello everyone, my name is Azatru, how are you, and welcome to another Star Wars gaming video. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you new details on a Battlefront spin-off that would have paved the way for another Battlefront 3 a few years ago. Drawing inspiration from the Republic Commando game and the Iraq War, this gritty shooter could have been something great. Star Wars First Assault, along with 1313, was cancelled by Disney, and it has an interesting history, and in this video, you will be finding out new details, so make sure you watch until the end so you don't miss out on anything super cool. This game was weeks away from a public release, and it would have been the first game in a trilogy, and we even found out new information about the second game, so you will hear about that in this video. So let's get started with a quick recap for those of you that have forgotten about this game or if you didn't know it existed. So before we move on to the new details, let's talk about what First Assault was. It would have released on Xbox Live Arcade only because it was a small budget first-person shooter to test the waters before Battlefront 3 was to begin again as a brand new game. And this is super interesting to me. A grittier, ground combat only shooter focusing on just stormtroopers and rebels was the main theme. Development started in 2009 with a beta planned for autumn 2012, with the full release coming in 2013. Lucasarts delayed the game indefinitely when Disney purchased them along with the entirety of Lucasfilm in 2012, more details on its demise towards the end of the video. Ultimately, just like 1313, it was cancelled. More on the demise of this game later on in the video, you won't want to miss the drama. So we had incredible concept art come out over the past few years, along with leaked gameplay. And I can't show the gameplay for copyright reasons, but I can show the art throughout this video. A build of the tech beta that could only run on Xbox 360 development kits has leaked, and I happen to have that build, but unfortunately you can't run it on an emulator at this moment in time. It gives you the title screens for ESRB, Unreal Engine 3 and LucasArts, but it just crashes when it starts to load up the main menu. You even get some music, and more on the music later on. After Free Radical's overly ambitious Battlefront 3 was cancelled, LucasArts wanted to start with something basic again, and expand upon that with staggered releases. So First Assault was a ground combat only game, and it could have even been free to play with microtransactions, which was a big, crazy bold move back in the day, but that idea was scrapped. A fun fact is that Richard Lim, who made a lot of the concept art, the stuff you will be seeing throughout this video, for this game from LucasArts Singapore, was actually a concept artist on Rogue One, and you can see the similarities in the war-torn material. So Lad Bible posted an article recently that really caught my eye. It included interviews with developers who worked on First Assault, and having not heard anything on this game for about 7 years, this is so amazing. It revealed so many more fascinating details, so let's get straight into it. The game was weeks away from being a public beta, but the news of Disney purchasing Lucasfilm struck, and naturally you would think that Disney cancelled the game there and then, but that is not the case. The developers continued working on the game according to the developers in this interview. They actually continued work on the game, plus many of the developers began work on a second game, Wingman, and this was going to be focused on vehicle combat. This would introduce vehicle combat into the ground game. This was the second in the trilogy. It included ATSTs, speeders, and more were planned, whilst a small team prepared First Assault for release. Some gameplay of Wingman was leaked back in 2013, showing off Rebel-controlled AATs, speeder bikes, ATSTs, land speeders, X-Wings, TIEs, and more. A developer who wanted to remain anonymous said that they watched Iraq war documentaries for inspiration on how squads work and talk together in the modern setting. The lead designer on weapons, Tony Rose, said that the weapons were based on real historical guns, much like the original trilogy, and not the unrealistic toy-like prequel weapons. The weapons in the game were categorised as blasters, assault weapons, sniper rifles, shotguns, bowcasters, and concussion rifles, and the concussion rifle would have significant knockback. There was also a disruptor laser, which was basically the Spartan laser from Halo, a one-shot laser kill. This is what Tony had to say. We needed to keep the scope contracted and not try to do everything in Star Wars, unlike the previous Battlefront 3 teams. They were probably told by LucasArts to include everything at once. Jedi, Starfighter, Sith, the lot. Our team had freedom to say, no, you're on Mos Eisley, and that is it. You can't fly into space. Ground combat is all you have to worry about. That's what allowed us to fine-tune a singular experience. The creative director on Republic Commando, Tim Longo, returned to Lucasarts to take control of this project later down the line, and they doubled down on the multiplayer aspects with a variety of game modes. Most of the weapons had a socket system allowing for a lot of customization. You could change and upgrade barrels, scopes, ammo, and an AUX slot. Players could also deploy equipment such as force fields, rocket turrets, plus throwables like ion grenades, infection grenades, and even microwave grenades. There were also abilities like tactically revealing the enemy's position for a teammate or activating a hologram. The unnamed developer went on to say that with our hologram, you actually had two options. You could spit it out and just let it sit there like in Halo Reach, or you could hold down the button and actually transition to controlling the hologram. So a lot of the times what we do is hide behind a corner, deploy the controllable hologram, running guns blazing at the team that were guarding the point, and have the rest of the team flank as you drew their attention. This was super unique. As for game modes, there was Attrition, which was an 8v8 team deathmatch, a Capture Point mode where you'd claim the enemy's base, Sabotage, where one team had a bomb and you had to transport it to the other team's base and blow it up, and a Payload mode which was similar to Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch. 2 planets were planned for the beta launch, Bespin and Tatooine, and each of these planets would have a number of maps, for example, Mos Eisley and an Imperial base. There was also concept art for Kashyyyk, but that eventually would be pushed back for a later update. Music is a huge part of Star Wars, and the first Assault game had a sophisticated dynamic music system that would play different tracks recorded by the London Symphony Orchestra, depending on various in-game factors. The score would consist of many reinterpretations of John Williams' classic themes, and original tracks drawing inspiration from world music. Wilbert Roget, the composer on First Assault, who also made the scores for Vader Immortal, The Force Unleashed 2, and The Old Republic, elaborates on this. We had created a system which took data from the local players' actions, as well as info on their current surroundings, to determine when to play music and which music cues to play. The system updated itself throughout each match, and made sure that each player had a balance of music regardless of skill level, and worked in tandem with scripted music calls. And to add to that, Star Wars Squadrons is actually going to be using something similar. It's going to have a very dynamic music system based on what you are doing, what is going on, and I can't wait to experience that. Now let's move on to some sad times. The team was 3 years in development when the first sign of disaster struck. As the game was ready to be released as a beta on the Xbox Live Arcade store, Disney purchased Lucasfilm, throwing the future of the game and LucasArts itself into doubt. The beta was delayed, with Lucasfilm at the time allegedly declining to pay, so journalists were told, a small 5-figure fee in localization costs, and it told employees not to speak about the project. The anonymous developer states that the game was ready to be released on the store, and then like a week it was supposed to go live. I think they announced the Disney buyout and just delayed the beta. But we kept working on the game. During this time, developers were moved around LucasArts internally due to a hiring freeze, with members of the First Assault team going across to help with Wingman, whilst others went to help 1313 and patch that game up. Lad Bible sources' estimates do vary on how much development time was left on First Assault, with some suggesting 2 or 3 months, whilst others claim it was closer to 5 or 6. So this does not give a very clear picture as to who's telling the truth and what the state of this game was like. Was it really, really buggy and probably should never have been released? We just don't know. Meanwhile, at the same time, the team on Wingman had put together some early multiplayer maps, which included a large space battle, as well as a very basic campaign prototype. Despite the Disney announcement, we continued to work at our full potential for months, rallying together to make the best game we possibly could. We were a much smaller and younger crew than the 1313 crew, and with everybody dedicating their extra efforts, having a strong and personal commitment to the project right until the very last day, according to the composer Roget, and he still considers to this day First Assault to be one of his best video game scores. On April 3rd, 2013, Lucasfilm announced that Lucasarts would no longer function as an internal development studio, with Disney wanting to license out their IP instead. Due to this, all of the projects were immediately cancelled. For the First Assault team, this was a significant blow. There is still a ton of speculation now amongst the team about why First Assault never saw a release, despite being so close to completion. The most obvious reasoning is that Disney were likely speaking to EA at the time about the license for Star Wars games, and to release another game developed internally at that time would have complicated these talks. Rowe, however, speculates that there is another reason. Part of the reason was because we were developing a couple of games that were a little bit more violent, he suggests. Not just a lot more violent, not just gory, not just embracing good and gore and such, but they were Star Wars games for adults, or at least teens, and not kids. To support this, Rowe did point out that in an interview in January 2013, former Disney CEO Bob Iger said that he vowed to look into video game violence in response to the Sandy Hook school shooting. Rowe believes that by not developing projects internally, Disney were distancing themselves and their more mature output at the time. They were giving the projects to other companies. And that is where EA came in. They came in to make Star Wars games as opposed to Disney actually making them themselves. This is a fairly reasonable response at the time given the situation, so I don't think anyone should be mad about that. It is just disappointing that it led to losing out on games that hundreds of people poured their life's work into, and we never got to experience these potentially amazing games. I'd love to hear your opinions on First Assault and what you've learned today, so comment down below, just below the like button, and if you did enjoy this video and found something interesting, please do drop a like to support the channel. If you are new around here, make sure you do subscribe and turn notifications on so you don't miss any future videos. And that is all for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Check out any of the 2 previous videos on the screen if you did miss them, and I shall see you in my next Star Wars Battlefront 2 video. Goodbye.